Welcome to the Phronesis Partners podcast, Navigate with Confidence. In each episode, we sit down with our clients and other thought leaders to discuss how they and their own customers use insights and data to illuminate, validate, and navigate their paths to growth and competitive success. We welcome you to join us as we uncover and explore the unknown so that business leaders like you can navigate your own opportunities and challenges with speed, accuracy, and confidence. In B2B marketing, brand is critical to staying relevant and driving growth. In many cases, it's the key factor that sets thriving companies apart from the rest. Today, we're joined by Nicola Stubbs, head of brand at Boxxe, a UK-based technology solutions provider helping organizations drive digital transformation. Nicola has been instrumental in redefining how B2B brands position themselves in highly competitive markets. With years of experience crafting insight-driven brand strategies, she understands the importance of regular brand health assessments to keep a brand aligned with customer expectations. I'm thrilled to have Nicola with us today to discuss how Boxxe's bold brand positioning and brand positioning in general drives growth in the ever-evolving tech and B2B landscape. Welcome, Nicola. It's so great to have you here.
Hi, Elaine. It's great to be here.
So let's dive in on the trend where B2B companies are increasingly adopting marketing strategies from the B2C playbook. Why do you think that it's essential for B2B marketers to think more like those in B2C?
So I think obviously in many ways, B2B is different to B2C, but I think in lots of other ways, B2B marketing is no different to B2C, and that it can be made even more effective and successful when some of those same principles used in B2C are applied in B2B. And so from my experience working at Boxxe and understanding a bit more about the sector, I find that, too often B2B businesses operate right at the bottom of the funnel, same as all their competitors, and use tactics that are often, easily replicable. They tend to, skew heavily towards like short-term, rational, quite targeted campaigns that are there to drive immediate sales. And to the contrary, I think the use of long-term brand building and broad targeting and creative work that leads with emotion is sort of largely absent from B2B marketing. But in my opinion, these things are just as important in B2B as they are in B2C. And I think that, to grow, B2B brands definitely require a better balance of that sort of short-term sales activation and longer-term brand building, focusing on audiences that aren't necessarily in the market today. So without a doubt, some of those tools that B2C marketers use, in their advertising, so creativity, emotion, fame, are all things that I think B2B marketers should also be using, to increase the success of their communications.
Yeah, I think that's great how you refer to the emotional aspect of marketing in B2B, and mainly how it's critical to realize that B2B buyers are not businesses buying; they're still people who have those emotions to tap into. So I think that's where, like I said, adopting from the B2C playbook becomes particularly relevant.
Yeah, I would echo that point, exactly what you've just said. It's almost like B2B marketers sometimes forget that people buy from people, and actually you are dealing with real humans too in B2B marketing who can be engaged with in exactly the same way as B2C customers.
Yeah, so Boxxe has undergone a significant brand repositioning in recent years. I think you're still undergoing it. Can you walk us through the steps that Boxxe took in redefining its brand and why it was so important to make these changes in such a competitive space?
Yeah, sure. So I will just start actually by just talking a bit about the space that we do operate in, to give a little bit of context to why we've done what we've done. So yeah, there are a lot of resellers out there. I mean, hundreds. The barriers of entry are really low, and therefore it's quite a busy space. It's quite cluttered. And through our nature as resellers, we're all selling the same products and services. So it's a very busy, homogenous market. Everyone really is trying to do the same sort of thing. So in the face of that market context, through research, we also understood that there was low loyalty in the sector and low levels of customer centricity, with many brands actually not meeting basic customer expectations. We also knew through research that brand awareness of Boxxe was very low in the sector compared to many of our major competitors. So there was very little understanding of who Boxxe are, or a common understanding of what we did. And also, combined with that, there were very few competitors that actually had a brand which was inspiring or different. So in the face of all of that, we knew that in order to cut through in such a busy, cluttered market, we needed to do something different. We needed to differentiate and stand out. So what did we do? Essentially, research was the starting point. So we understood through insights where the gaps were, where the white space was for us to differentiate. We looked at what customer needs were and weren't being met. We looked at what customers look for in a reseller, and that's what we aimed to deliver on and reflect in our brand. We also found that actually existing customers of Boxxe were actually generally very satisfied with the service they received at Boxxe, and had pretty good perceptions of Boxxe and willingness to recommend our brand once they had worked with us. So we tried to really get under the skin of that as well, and use that to our advantage. What we also did was lots of internal research to get under the skin of what made Boxxe different to other resellers. And what came out was that it's our people. It was our people that sort of made us different, and our culture. So taking all that into consideration, what we tried to do is create a distinctive brand that stands out, that has stature, that wouldn't look out of place amongst the big tech brands, and that has delivered on the key attributes that customers have told us that they're looking for. So we created a new look and feel, a new visual identity. We redefined our vision, our mission, and our values, and we've taken all of that to market with new brand campaigns. We're in our second year of that now, and it seems to be starting to pay off.
And that's fantastic. It's interesting. You're talking about all the challenges that a company like Boxxe has, operating in an environment where there's lots of competitors and where it's difficult to differentiate yourself. And I feel like you're talking about phronesis, because we have the same challenge being in the research space, and it's always a challenge to differentiate yourself in certain areas. So I understand where you're coming from, and I love what you've done, leaning in on research to identify those gaps in customer expectations and what they're getting, and and why the ones that do have loyalty to Boxxe are staying around. As part of your research, I believe you've also done brand health assessments, which are something that are quite valuable to B2B companies, but often overlooked. Why do you believe that regular assessments are so important, and how do they keep a brand like yours relevant and strong?
Yeah, so all my previous roles have been in the B2C space, and in each of those roles, I've seen massive value from running regular brand health assessments. And one of the first things I did when I joined Boxxe about 2 years ago was do a brand health assessment and to get that baseline. And at Boxxe, we run brand assessments annually. We're actually in field at the moment with our latest brand tracking study. Some brands might run these more frequently, but at the moment we're not spending enough to see any movement on a more frequent basis right now. But yeah, a brand health check will, like I say, it's the first thing I did when I joined Boxxe to help determine the current state of the brand. So it looks at, a collection of metrics used to measure customer awareness and perception of your brand. So yeah, it's important to get feedback, understand what's important to your customers, where you need to improve. It tells you if your brand is okay or not, which attributes it does perform well on, which it doesn't. And staying on top of all of that will help you, stay ahead of the competition and, adjust and refine your strategy and approach accordingly. So we use it, in Boxxe, with my team, we use it as a key input into our annual strategy and planning, and it'll be used to help inform what the job is that we need to do for brand next year. So, if what we're doing is working, then we do more of the same. But if it's not, and we're not seeing improvements in areas we want, then we know that it's time to change tact.
Can you provide any specific examples of how Boxxe has used results from the health assessment to adapt its brand to stay relevant and ahead?
So in order to adapt its brand to stay relevant and ahead. So in terms of like what Boxxe want to stand for as a brand. And when I first joined Boxxe, the brand didn't really stand for anything, neither sort of internally or externally. And that's partly because we weren't communicating consistently. And there was, room for people to make their own conclusions about the brand, but also partly because the brand hadn't been successfully embedded internally either. So, the brand values, vision, mission, they weren't clear and they weren't understood by our boxers. And, that external facing brand didn't have an aligned or consistent execution. So, we knew that the brand was an untapped asset that we could use to our advantage. And it was, again, through research that we knew what we wanted to stand for, and we knew the brand attributes that we needed to drive. It's those ones that were important to our customers and those that we knew we could authentically deliver on. So, we're still on that journey. We've defined our position, and time will tell if that's landing in the market. But for example, like some of the things that customers said that things that were important to them were things such as they want to work with a reseller that makes technology easy to understand. So someone that simplifies things, doesn't use jargon. A reseller that's like easy to deal with, that are experts, that invest and protect in the environment, that care about the communities that we serve and the planet and people. And those things that we learned through research are now like directly reflected in our brand values, and hopefully are starting to come across in the external articulation of that as well.
So you mentioned how when you joined Boxxe and started embarking on brand research or brand health assessments, you recognized that your brand itself was an untapped asset. To what extent do you think leveraging that asset and getting more consistent clarity and around your brand and messaging has actually played a role in driving growth at Boxxe? Have you seen any measurable results in either perception, so what your brand health assessments are telling you year to year, or in actual top line revenue or customer growth?
So when we did as I mentioned, we are in field at the moment with our latest brand tracking. So, but last year we'd started to see some of the brand image statements that we wanted to be known for definitely moving in the right direction. But like I say, haven't got the results of this year's study, but hopefully they've continued to move in the right direction. One of the metrics we do measure is our brand awareness, because like I mentioned, our awareness for Boxxe, the awareness of Boxxe is quite low in the sector. And we have had an early heads up on that metric in particular, and we have seen a shift in that particular metric, which is really good to see.
So in general, B2B customers have high expectations when it comes to brand alignment. Why do you think it is so important for companies like Boxxe to align their brand values with customer expectations? And how do you make sure that this alignment happens in the B2B space?
So obviously, brand values, they're the things that a company lives by. It's their beliefs. It's how they do things, how they behave, what their culture is like. And we know that in today's world that there's a rising generation of customers that don't just buy into you for your products or services or your advertising campaigns. They want brands to stand for something much bigger than the products they sell. And I think arguably that's even more important in B2B, as it is that individual, it's that one-to-one, it's the relationship with that person, and that person is the face of that organization. So I think it's important for B2C, but it's equally, if not more important for B2C as well. And going back to our brand tracking and the research that's underpinned our brand direction, we do have a good understanding of what is important to our customers and crucially where customer expectations are not currently being met. So as I've said, we very much are aligning our business and our brand around those things.
Well, this has been really insightful, Nicola, and I greatly appreciate you sharing your experience with doing brand repositioning at your company and sharing with us your expertise and insights coming from a B2C world and now being in B2B, and how you're applying some of those best practices that we see there to your own company and industry. Is there anything else that you'd like to add as a takeaway for our listeners?
There's one thing actually, and it's sort of going back to the question at the top of the chat around B2B marketers, thinking more like B2C marketers, and what I was saying around the focus tending to be in B2B marketing skewed towards the short term lead gen type activity as opposed to brand building. And there was a really good analogy that somebody told me once, which I thought I'd share, which was too much time spent picking the low hanging fruit means less time watering the tree, and eventually the tree stops growing.
I love that. That's great. So this has been a really great conversation, and we've explored the power of brand strategy and B2B marketing, and how Boxxe is driving digital transformation through bold positioning. And if you're looking to elevate your B2B brand, don't forget the importance of creativity, emotion, and long-term brand building. So I'd like to thank you, Nicola, for taking the time to talk to our listeners today, and thank you to our listeners for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, and don't forget to follow us on social media for the latest updates and behind-the-scenes content. Stay tuned for more episodes where we will continue to explore and navigate the complex world of B2B sales and more, to provide you with the insights you need to navigate your business decisions with confidence.